afternoon. My name is Sheila Buwan Joseph, and you are tuning in again with Thick Chicks with a Thought. And today I have an alum of SSC.
Yes,
FSC,
yes.
yes. So I would like for you to introduce yourself, my dear, to my audience.
Hi. Okay. Hi, my name is Millie. I went to college with Sheila way back when. I am a Boston native and a mom of one named Mia. So it's great to be here, Sheila.
Thank you for coming. And our topic today is how our kids are awesome. And sometimes you'll probably hear my daughter in the background, but that's okay. Sometimes we are dealt with different things. How we picture life is supposed to happen is not what we're dealt. So in this case, we're talking about children with special needs on all cases of the spectrum. So that doesn't necessarily have to be autistic, doesn't necessarily have to be Down syndrome. It could be just ADHD, ASD, whatever. So we're here to just have a conversation about me and you, as we are parents of children with special needs. And I would like for you to tell me where you originally from. Let's get to know you. I know you because I was your mentor.
I know. Oh my God, so long ago.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It was years. So I grew up in the south end of Boston. My grandparents raised me, and I've never really left Boston to that extent. I'm a native Bostonian. I've been here forever. Went to high school here, college in the same state. And I still locally live in Jamaica Plain right now.
Oh,
which is awesome. Yeah, I never really got out of the city. I moved out for a little while. I went to Walpole for a little bit, lived in Lynn for a little bit. Never didn't seem to keep being drawn back to the city. So,
City of Sin. Oh Lord,
girl, I stayed there for 3 months. I was like, this is not for me. This is not for me. Absolutely. And then just because I feel like Bostonians are South Shore people.
Yes.
Even if you offered me today to buy a 5-bedroom house in Lynn for $250,000, I would not take it. I would take the 2-bedroom for $500 in Brockton. And people don't understand it, but it's like, I'm just not a fan. Not that Lynn isn't beautiful, but I did the North Shore for a few years. That was it for me. Yep. So now I live in the city. I work at Boston Children's. I worked at Tufts Medical Center 15 years before that. So I'm definitely a Boston native at heart, and it's very hard to leave. So I love it here. Good.
Oh, yes, girl. I love it here too. I was born and raised here, but raised by Haitian parents. So that's different, because you can't be an American in a Haitian household. No, that's very just not gonna. And what nationality are you?
Oh, so it's kind of interesting. So I'll just keep it short. So my dad is Puerto Rican, but he was adopted by a Black family. So I was raised by my father's grandparents who are Black. So I identify as Black, but I'm Puerto Rican from my dad's side, and my mother is Cape Verdean. So it's a good little mix of the two. So you get a little mashup.
Oh, okay. So do you speak any of the language?
No. So it's when I grew up, my grandparents, like I had for real grandparents, like they were born in 1910 and 1915. Like they adopted my dad at 41 and 45.
All right.
So we grew up in the South End in a very kind of diverse neighborhood of kind of like Puerto Ricans and Chinese, like in the 80s, was mostly that in the South End. Right. So I grew up making neck bones and greens and, black eyed peas. I didn't grow up making anything Latino or anything Cape Verdean because I didn't really have a relationship with my mother until I was in my 20s. Yeah, and I am 42, just disclaimer, like I am 42 and feeling every day of it today. But I worked a 10-hour shift in the ER yesterday, girl. My body is tired and weary.
I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you.
So I definitely grew up and it's funny just culturally identifying with Mia, whose dad is Black and Puerto Rican. Like it's a really interesting mix with her and trying to get her to know her cultural identity. But as I got older, I started to learn a little bit more about Puerto Rican culture and Cape Verdean culture, which has been really cool.
Okay. So. Now, do you ever think about going to either Cape Verde or Puerto Rico?
So yes, it's funny. One of our good friends from Salem State, Claudia Souza, is one of my best friends. And she's always trying to get us to go to Cape Verde and talking about it. She's Cape Verdean to the core, right? So we're trying to plan a trip, but mama girl don't like to fly. I hate flying with every fiber in my being. But I'm gonna make this pilgrimage, if you will, for my daughter because I really want her to know where she comes from culturally. I think that's really important. Wow. So my sister and I are planning to go to Puerto Rico in the end of the summer. So that is my first time going there as well. So I'm really excited, but I definitely want to go for sure. It's beautiful there, I've heard. And it's reasonable, girl. It's not expensive in Cape Verde at all.
Oh, really?
West Africa is beautiful. Yeah, it's pretty reasonable.
Wow.
Very reasonable.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have
That's
my sister-in-law's sister. She's gone to visit KCV so many times,
Yeah.
and she absolutely loves it. So that's one of the
I can't
places
wait
on
to
my
go.
bucket list that I want to go.
It's
But I know a
and
couple of
it's reasonable price.
yeah,
Reasonable price. Like it's super affordable.
yeah. But I'm going to PR in next month, and the prices
Nice.
I don't even understand what they're talking about because they're charging like $600 just to.
So let me help you translate. That's a U.S. territory.
Yes.
So of course it's not like you're going to DR, right? Where
Right.
things are dirt, or even Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, girl, you can go to Panama for a fraction of what you would pay to go to Puerto Rico. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So and it's just like it's so jacked, especially like in old San Juan and these popular tourist like spots. They definitely have the price up because they know, especially now with you need a passport to go certain places. You go to PR with a license, so they're gonna raise the price up. But if you do an Airbnb and like something local like that, you can get a really good deal for like 7 days.
Yeah,
but it's beautiful. You're gonna love it. The food, girl. Haitian food's my favorite. That's my top food. But Puerto Rican food, George is my best friend. George.
Yes.
Back to you for. He's Haitian to the core. So his mother always making some ginger rice and some grill, something on Sunday. I'm trying to get a plate.
That's right. And George really, I don't know if his mom still lives right on River Street, but she lives.
They haven't moved. George lived there too.
Oh, really?
Girl, I said, George, they threw up a small city across the street from your house.
Yes.
I was like, because Mattapan is the last safe haven we have in this city. But that's another podcast for another day. But Mattapan is the last. So, and I saw that building. I'm like, it's done.
Yes,
I was like, oh my God.
It's such an eyesore. It is an eyesore, girl.
It looks like it's out of place too. But
you are
hopefully they're offering some low income. Hopefully Michelle Wu's gonna do some stuff with that, and it's not gonna be like $1,800 for a studio.
Right.
But hopefully it'll be good. But yeah, George is still there, girl, with his mother still kicking.
Oh wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. So shout out to Mr. George. How you doing? Yes. Please.
Me as Godfather. Yes.
Oh really? Mm-hmm. Oh okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay.
I've known George since I was 14. I've known George almost all my life.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So you didn't meet him at SSE?
No. So we started at this place called Youth Voice Collaborative, which is a program we started like an inner city initiative to teach inner city kids about the media that was incorporated with MIT.
Oh,
so we started that. So that's where we originally had met because he was going. I think what was he going? He was going to that private school. He wasn't in high school yet. He was not at CM. He was at the private school, St. Patrick's. Maybe he was at St. Patrick's. Okay. I'm not sure. But I went to
that's a Haitian school.
So
regardless.
we had, so we, so we met through there, and we just, and then George followed me to Salem State, and then we've been best friends ever since.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
He's doing good, though.
This is nice. So, okay. I want to ask you, if you're single.
Yeah.
You are single.
Yes.
And how long have you been single?
So it's kind of funny. So So I was engaged to my daughter's father when I actually got pregnant with Mia, and it was just like, it just didn't work out. It was one of those things that just didn't click. And because my dad was like the 6-foot Puerto Rican, like bachelor, like long curly hair, he was more Afro Latino than, like traditional Puerto Rican. He would walk women in and out of my life all my time. So my goal was to really not have many men around Mia. So I'm kind of in a situationship. I'm gonna say that.
I love it.
It's hard. I'm just being honest. I've been dealing with the same person since Mia was 6 months old, essentially. Okay. And it's like I'm just trying to find a balance, and we just have two different paths, but we're not together. So it was important for me to not have different people in and out of Mia's life and make Mia my focus if she was going to be my only one until she was old enough to understand. So now I'm dating a little bit more. Okay. But it's only in the past couple years. But I've been single probably. There's been a relationship on and off. So I can say I've been single the past maybe 3.5 years, I could say.
All right. And having that sense of like stability, like a male figure in Mia's life is way more important than just the playing and,
Well, her father and I co-parent completely efficiently. Yes. Like if you ask Mia right now, it's a funny question, who she loves more, she'll tell you I love my parents equally. Like Mia does not. We've always had a really good space where he's taken her half the week. I've had her half the week. It's never been that I've had to chase her or vice versa. So I thank goodness that she has him, she has George, she has my brothers and stuff that are constant in her life. So she has male figures. But I just wanted to make sure that everything was balanced for her, that she didn't feel like she was lacking. even if we weren't together. So I think that really was something I didn't feel like I had to go out and get a partner to have a figure for her, because she already had her dad.
Okay, that's wonderful. I am so happy that, people, well, you and her father are able to co-parent in a manner of, respectability, and just to, the main focus, which is Mia. Right?
Girl, it's so wild. He has an older daughter than Mia. My daughter will go over to her sister's house and
really?
spend like, her mother, Judita, is amazing. Josiah's her sister. The mother is amazing. Like, we co-parent very effectively as a unit.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
Yeah, I tell that man all the time, you lucked out with two good women. You didn't even not a court. I'm like, you lucked out twice. I'm like, you better off. You didn't even hit the lottery, boy. I was like, you won. I was like, twice. Because at the end of the day, like, how are we supposed to like co-parent this if we don't come together as unit for the kids?
Yes, absolutely. Now, when did you become a mother?
So I got pregnant when I was 28. And fun fact, I never really had a desire to be a mom. It was never something that I felt was on the forefront of what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to travel and maybe, have a business and maybe do something like that. And when I got pregnant, maybe it was really life-changing. Like, it kind of, I was always my house was always a spot. Everybody was always over there, was partying, like, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then as I got a little bit older, I realized, maybe this isn't what it is. And Mia just was kind of a blessing from God and came along. And I knew, like, from the day of, like, it's so funny. I tell her the story all the time. Like, I knew instantly. And I knew it was a girl, and I knew what I was going to name her. And I was super excited to have her. Oh, yeah, I knew I was having a girl. God put me on this earth to raise strong women, girl. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to raise nobody's sons. I'm here to raise strong women.
Absolutely.
But no, all jokes aside, it was a blessing. Like, and, I had a difficult pregnancy, but it was all definitely worth it. Like, Mia was amazing and still is amazing. That's my boo.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm sorry, my daughter is just...
Oh, that's fine.
She has Abby, the flying school girl.
It's fine.
Oh my goodness. So how old is Mia?
Mia is 13 going on 45.
Okay. And my daughter's about the same. And
it's changed around 10 is when she started to shift. That's when I saw the shift. With 10, I saw it starting to slip.
Oh, okay. Well, I started maybe when she was like 7.
I was living in ignorant bliss.
Yeah, 7. She's like, yeah, I want my phone and I want to be in my room all by myself. So it's like, it's okay. Fun. So when did you notice that Mia had a problem?
So, well, what Mia has an issue, which has 2 things. So she has ADHD, and she has difficulty in encoding and decoding, which is a reading type of thing. As well, she's on the chart for dyslexia, but not diagnosed as dyslexic, which is kind of strange. But at any rate, when she was younger, Mia just didn't like words. Like, it was very hard for her to get into a book, to read a lot, for us to read to her. She wouldn't sit still. But we're all gamers. Me, my sister, my brother, all of us, we all video game, her dad. So she was really into video games. So when she got into K1 and K2, she was like drawing letters backwards and numbers backwards, like the classic model dyslexia. Her father's dyslexic, so he saw it immediately. And he was like, oh, maybe she has something going on. So as she got into K2, like, her teachers were pulling me aside because it wasn't improving. So that was kind of where we first saw that there was something a little bit different with her learning style. Okay. So it's kind of around I'd say maybe I noticed it at 3, but definitely in like K1, K2, I really spotted it. Okay. That's when it really came out.
All right. So when did you have her? Is she officially diagnosed or?
So what happened was when she got into 1st grade. So let me take a step back. When we learned all these things, we were really apt to put Mia in Catholic school. None of us had ever went to public school.
Right.
So I talked to a couple of my friends who were special ed teachers at the time, like, you have to keep her public. Like, if there is something wrong, they're like, you're not going to be able to afford the services that's going to be needed for her to succeed in school. So at that point, I requested an IEP. What the IEP tests for is not dyslexia. It's just learning disabilities or like ADHD. And Mia scored with those. And then we had to have her separately tested for dyslexia. And she's not officially diagnosed, but she has some classic signs of it, which are now getting better. That was when she was younger. So now that she's a little bit older, it's now more the encoding, decoding, learning disability part of it, as well as the ADHD. So I have a Black pediatrician. I feel having pediatricians of color is huge in an urban setting.
Yes.
Because my pediatrician will not let them over medicate her. She reads every single IEP. She's at every single meeting. She's very present.
Yes.
So she gave me a lot of guidance into what to do with this. And thank God we're at a point now where Mia still hates to read, but she's got the tools and things to help her get by and get good grades and things like that. So
okay. So what would you tell my listeners who are experiencing their child is like, let's say between the ages of 2 and 5, what would you tell them?
So I would just be on the lookout for like inversion of letters, like as they're doing their name, like if you're writing the numbers, if they're writing numbers backwards, if they're trying to pronounce words and you're trying to do small words like cat, even though it's one syllable, they might have a problem like saying the word, if that makes sense. Because a part of Mia's disability is not being able to really do syllables well or break down words. So if you see little things like that, mostly for sure the number inversion, and all kids have lack of attention. So ADHD is really hard to get a grasp on until they're on that higher end of like 5, 6, 7, because children are going to be children. I think we don't give them enough space to just be kids and kind of see how it plays out. But definitely like aversion to reading and not want to sit and read with you, that could be a sign that there's something going on and that you might need to look at a little further. Now, remember, your teachers have your kids more than you do. So if they're not, it has to be a dialogue. So you need to not be scared to reach out to your teachers like, hey, you know, how do you think Mia's doing, you know, when you guys are doing reading time? How is she paying attention? And do you think she's following? All those things make a difference. So for sure, look for those 2 things.
Okay. And how about with, you mentioned the pediatric doctor.
Yes.
How,
go ahead.
How would you say, I know you said your pediatric is very involved. So is mine. And I had to switch to three pediatrics and they were all amazing. And the reason why we had to switch is because one moved away, the other retired, and this one I have now, she's Haitian and she has an autistic brother. So she is very in tune with it. So if you have a pediatrician that is not so familiar with dyslexia or even autism, what would you suggest? Would you suggest them to find somebody, or would you suggest?
I think you have to do your research. Like Dr. Porter just kind of fell in my lap just because, again, I didn't know Mia was going to have any type of learning disability or developmental disability before I had her. But thank God when I did, when she started showing signs, you know, I was able to reach out to Dr. Porter, and she was like, look, we're not going to start medicating her. When the time comes, we'll talk about medication. She's like, we're not over medicating her. She's not taking it on the weekends. She takes it during the school year. That's it. She's like, we'll sit with the teacher. She's like, I want to see the IEPs. She's like, before you sign the IEPs, you bring them to me. She's like, let me address it. You have to do a little bit of research, especially when your kid is like autistic. That's like a totally different ballgame, right? Like you have to make sure that you're going to have a provider that's going to be active in getting you the services that you need for your child. Not just, oh, okay, well, this is, no, you want them to be actively involved. So reaching out to the community, I know there's a lot of online boards and things like that, that you can reach out to in groups and support groups that will kind of give you the advice that you need and lead you in the right direction to find a good provider. Because just because they're covered by your insurance don't mean that's who you should be with, right? And
Absolutely.
I strongly advocate for physicians of color, for kids of color. I don't want to make it into a bigger thing than what it sounds like, but I feel like from working in healthcare for 20 plus years, I feel like there's something to be said about 2 things. Someone that my child can identify with, like, well, dang, I could be a doctor one day too.
Absolutely.
And someone who understands the community base and our cultures and our values. Because remember, we come from the generation before us of kids that was on Ritalin. You know what I'm saying? Like we come from a different space. And I see a lot of these kids just doped up, medicated just to be calm. And I feel like if you have a doctor that's informed and wants to work with you and wants what's best for your child, you'll get the best for your child. So just reaching for random names isn't going to cut it. You really have to take the research step.
Okay. Now, how do you think Mia is adjusting with her diagnosis?
So one thing that Dr. Porter, again, I keep bringing it back to Lynn, Dr. Porter wants to make sure that Mia didn't feel any different from anybody else.
Okay.
When she was talking about ADHD, and I think Mia was probably maybe 7 at the time, we all sat down and talked like, look, you are no different than no one else. Some people just read this way, you read this way. Some people do this way, you do this way. So it was just more so making her comfortable that she knows she has this and that we work with this and that we try to get the best for her with this. Like she's very comfortable in her own skin. Mia really takes to graphic novels a lot, which is great. They're like basically comic books and books, but they're set up like manga, like Japanese anime books would be. They're mostly frames with words. It's not like an actual book. And thank goodness this past year, she's just really started getting into reading like word books, which is awesome. So she knows that she'll be the first to tell you that she has dyslexia, that she doesn't read well, but she does math amazingly. You know what I mean? She has a really good memory. Like, I just feel like, you might not be a writer, but you can definitely be an architect.
Right.
So it's like she's comfortable in her own skin. We never made her feel like she's anything different than anybody else.
Okay. Now, who were your biggest support system when you found out the diagnosis, when you got all this information? Who was your big support system?
So you know me, I'm pretty independent. So it was like I didn't really turn to anyone because my coping mechanism is internalizing and processing and then putting together a plan. So for me, Dr. Porter, if I had to pick, it'd be Dr. Porter number one.
Mm-hmm.
Claudia was definitely there for me too. She's a therapist.
Yes.
I'm bouncing it off her.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to figure out what we can come up with a plan that's going to work. And also my mom, but my mom was very like anti any medication, anything for ADHD. Because again, my brother's a product of Ritalin. And she just was like, Millie, she's like, don't put her on anything. But Mia would come home to the point where she could tell you that she couldn't concentrate. She could tell when the medication wears off because she couldn't concentrate anymore. Mm-hmm. So those three people and her dad obviously was there as well. But it's like her teachers, and this really made me appreciate teachers in the Boston public school system because teachers would always advocate with me for Mia.
Yes.
So that because I guess if parents played a part, at least show they're interested and don't just sit back, they'll work with the kids. So her teachers for sure, like those 4 components have definitely been my saving grace with Mia and just like kind of maneuvering with activities for her and extracurricular things she could do and summer camp and things like that. Like all those, they've been like the 4 key pieces.
Okay, now did you ever have to, like, when all of this was coming at you, did you ever feel the point that you needed to find some type of resource for yourself to have self-care, or for Mia, for her to be able to cope and do her thing?
What my goal was to keep it as normal as possible.
Absolutely.
I didn't want her pulled out of class 4 hours a day. I wanted inclusive learning.
Mm-hmm.
If Mia, it's funny because on her IEP evaluation showed that she had a bit of anxiety. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe therapy is for everybody. If you're not open to it, it's not going to work. So I was like, okay. And I was talking to her dad, and her dad was so against it. Like, because in Black culture or people of color culture, we don't do therapy. You man up and you deal with it. You only talk. No one knows what goes on in the house. You talk to us, and that's that.
That's right.
And it's like, for me, I feel like, it's just an outlet for her to kind of express herself. Mm-hmm. And he was just totally against it. So instead of going to like group things, I tried to find activities that she could do to take her mind off of it. Okay. Like art, coloring, writing, sewing, video games. Was a huge gamer. So something that would take the stress of, because school is very stressful for her.
Right. To
take the stress off of her. And I just wanted to make sure that I was present. I didn't feel like I needed any type of help because, again, Mia didn't have this huge, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like she was all like autistic, right? Like, I feel like if that was the case, I would definitely have reached out for a support group and wouldn't have been ashamed to ask for help because the cope with that is a lot. So, but just because Mia just being dyslexic and having some learning disabilities and ADHD, if I couldn't manage it, I would ask for outside help. But I felt like it was something that we could keep a handle on. If Mia wanted therapy or wanted to talk to somebody, which I've offered to her multiple times, that she has that opportunity. I want to make sure that she feels safe in her space and in her learning. Mm-hmm. And I don't push Mia to get A's. When Mia gets what she gets, I don't push her. But you ain't bringing no D's. But you can get some B's here and there. You know what I mean? You get a C. You know what I mean? And the pandemic was horrible for me. To the point where when she was failing, oh my God, you can't put a kid with ADHD in front of a computer all day. Let me take it back. My girl had a son, Joshua. He was 4, autistic. You were trying to put him in front of a computer for 4 hours a day? I had to I was like, girl, send him to school. She's like, well, what about COVID? I'm like, what about his development? Let's put him in class because there's not going to be anyone in there. And Mia failed all her classes one semester. I said, that's it. You're going back to school. Like, you have to be in class because she wasn't engaged. And I think that set a lot of kids back. That was pretty challenging. That was tough for all of us. But I think like the kids, like the learning disability kids or the kids who want IEPs and things like that, the special ed kids, they took the hit the most because they're not used to that.
I believe it. Because with my children, being in front of a computer and trying to work wasn't happening. I thank God that Eli was here with me, because having 2 children on the spectrum, and having one focus and one who's trying to escape. One of my daughter, she's limited verbal, and you have to literally sit with her in order for her to focus. So she's like, what the hell? I want to play on an iPad. She knows how to shrink the screen down and just throw up some Sesame Street. Okay. And then there is my son, who is on the lower end, but he can do whatever he needs to do, but he still has to focus, and to sit them in front of a screen to something that they can't really feel, touch, or, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And sometimes, they wasn't able to attend class. It's not for them. So I think that was the hardest for us as parents, and also just to adjust for them to go back to school. And now I have to go back to school, and what's all of this? I don't want to do this. I want to be at home chilling, playing on my iPad, and now now you're forcing me to go back to a system that
very structured environment.
Right. Yeah. So it wasn't a good thing. It wasn't a good thing. I think that they did suffer, but hey, what can you do? You have to do the best that you can.
True.
Lord have mercy. So can I ask you, moving forward, after all of this and the resources that you have, what would you have done differently, knowing that what you know now? What would you have done differently?
I would have pushed for Boston Public Schools to do the dyslexia evaluation. That is not part of the IEP. Her father and I had to pay for that out of pocket. And had I known that I had to. Oh, yeah, girl. Oh, no, that's not paying. So remember, BPS wants to do the minimum possible. That's why, and let me take that back. Schools in the state, because it's not just Boston Public. So let me stop narrowing it down.
Okay.
Try to put you on a 504, because a 504 is implemented on a state level. Okay. That means that they don't have to do it. IEP is a federal plan that they have to implement regardless. Okay. So when you have all these things, the more a child needs, the more services the state has to bring in and pay for. Right. So they're going to want to do the bare minimum that they can do for your child. I mean, as nice as I can. If any teachers listen to this podcast, you want to reach out to me and correct me, please do. But if I'm dealing with personal experience, I can tell you right now, Boston Public School does not want to spend any extra money for services for your child. Right. I would have known who to write, who to talk to, going directly to the principal, getting those things done before I got kind of caught in this whole system of how it goes. Right. Yes. So that's the only thing I do, just be a little bit more informed and advocate a little bit more from the beginning. And I think it would have been a little bit better for her, for sure.
Okay. Now,
and also reach out, look online for support groups. There are other parents going through what you're going through. They can give you direction. If you don't know where you should go, if a doctor's telling you something you don't feel comfortable with, don't be afraid to get a second opinion. You are always entitled to a second opinion. That's why you have insurance. For whatever goes on with your child, if there's something that you feel is not correct, please speak up and reach out to the right people. And there are people out here that can help you. There's a huge community online for all children to have any type of disability. They're able to help you for sure. That's what I should have done that earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to unmute because the children.
Yeah, I know, girl.
It's like you say, all right, yeah. Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? So you see me all up in the house and everything. So sorry. Okay. My question to you, what would you do? Or what would you say to your daughter in order for her to move forward in her life, like leaving some type of legacy for her, so she knows that, my mom told me this to do this. So in order for me to be great, what would you say to her?
My grandmother used to always have this phrase for me, which is kind of not the best phrase, but she would always say, everything you get is from your shoulders up, not from your shoulders down. And I think that the way, she always grew from the South, but the way that I interpret that now as mom is that your best asset you have is your mind. And to take that, and regardless to where it takes you, you don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to get a PhD. You don't have to go to college. You can be an electrician, you can own a business, you can do what you want, but just make sure that you put your mind to whatever you want to do, focus on it and get it done. Grind it out until you get it done. And don't be afraid to fail, because you're going to fail. That's what life is about. You're going to fail.
Absolutely.
And it's just how you pick yourself back up and you clean it up and you do it again.
Okay. Now, if you could write a letter to Mia, say, "Hello, boo boo, my love. This is
don't touch my snacks." That be the opening line. Don't touch my snacks.
Oh, that's Lord, have mercy. Okay. Okay, you could write a letter to yourself, an uplifting letter to yourself, right?
To me or to me?
To you.
Oh, my goodness.
To open up in the next 5 years of how well you did or how poorly you did or whatever. What would you say to yourself?
I would just tell myself to have faith. I'm gonna do all the cliche stuff, to stick it out, that, you know, every day is a new day. And if the day before was bad, you wake up again and it's a fresh start. To not be so hard on yourself, to not be so critical of Mia, to not be so critical of me. So I think it's very hard to not get caught up in wanting the best for your child, or sometimes projecting through your child sometimes, for what you wish you could have done. But I would just tell myself to not be so hard on me, and that I'm doing the best that I can, and that I did an amazing job, and I raised a good girl, and she's a good person. She's my boo, my little Scorpio. You know, my little Scorpio, I love her. She's my boo.
Now, with the things that are going on in social media, TikTok and, you know, Instagram and stuff, how was she receptive to that? Has she ever come to you and say, "Mom, what the heck is going on here? Why are they beating up teachers for a challenge?"
The only time that I really excuse me, had an issue with this was during Black Lives Matter, the whole movement. That was a lot for me to take in. Okay. You know, we've always been very careful as to how we brought race to Mia, because I'm a firm believer it'll hit you in the face when the time comes. So I just want to let her have a chance to be a child. Mia does these things called anime edits. I'm sure your son knows what they are. Like, they're like cutscenes that are done with different things, and she literally makes herself, like, she watches Corey Kenshin, or she's very present online. So I let Mia have a TikTok so she could post her videos. And in that, you know, she would be on looking at other things, but I feel like when she was seeing like all this violence erupting and against Black people, and this is like the first time I heard Mia really say it. 12 was like, "Wow, Mom, white people kind of suck." And I was like, damn. I was like, did she hear me say white people suck? I'm just like, but now I'm just like, cause you know me. Yes. I can't help it. I was raised by parents from Greenville, Mississippi. Yes. Who were Black. My grandmother was ran out because she was mixed. Mm-hmm. My dad married a white woman. He got disowned. Like, it's right. So there's a big thing with that. So I'm like, damn. But her sister's half white, so I'm very careful. So I'm like, did I say anything? And she's like, no. Do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this? And it was really like time to open up this conversation and be like, look, this is the world, babe. I'm like, this is what it is. Like, and I'm sad that you're seeing it this way, but not everybody feels the same way about you that you do. Right. And that was a tough time, because it was a lot of animosity towards her. What was she saying? Oh my God. It was something about like killing cops. It was something along those lines. Oh, I forgot what it was, but I was like, don't say that. I was like, absolutely not. I was like, we don't say that. I'm like, right. No. But that was a really tough time for her with that. But, you know, she doesn't really come to me anymore. She's a little bit older. Mm-hmm. So now I let her have Instagram to post her stuff, and like to post, like, she can't post videos. Like, right. She can't post on Instagram, but she can do stories. Mm-hmm. And I'm on her Instagram and I watch her. But whenever she asks me about something, she's old enough for us to have a dialogue and talk about it. Okay. I mean, she did sex ed last week and was screaming orgasm all through the house. So it's like, it's time for us to, like, girl, Sheila, it's wild. It's wild. Wild. I was like, I was on the phone with my sister. My sister's like, what did Mia just say? I was like, yeah, girl, welcome to my house. Oh, wow. But I just feel like these kids are a lot different in the sense that they're way more mature than we were, because Absolutely. They're exposed to so much. Yes. And I just feel like, you know, now is the time for me, you know, she's turning 14 in November. Mm-hmm. It's time for us to have these conversations. I always keep it open. Okay. If you want to see, you can ask me about what you see and we can talk about it. But even like, you know, the things with Ukraine and Russia, she has lots of questions. And, you know, I think kids aren't used to, like, especially kids who are sensitive to feeling, like on the spectrum sometimes, they're not used to that direct violence. You know what I mean? That's the only way to put it, in their face type of stuff. And it's just taking time to explain it to her, because I don't want to say, don't look at that, because what's she going to do? She's going to go look at it 5 times.
Right.
So I'd rather us talk about it and see how you do. But she's always been comfortable coming to me to ask me about it. But yeah, the Black Lives Matter whole stretch was a lot. That was a lot for her.
It was a lot.
And the schools advocated it with T-shirts and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I know they're trying to do their best. I'm like, but let's not make everything about race. And I felt like that was kind of difficult for her to navigate, because she didn't know what to do. Like, your sister's white, you see white people beating people up. Where do you pick a side? Or do you have to pick a side? Like, where do you take a stand? So that was that was tough for her.
Wow.
Navigating that.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. It's hard, because my son and daughter, they can navigate through YouTube like with a drop of the hat. And it's amazing for me to just see that, for them to just navigate. But then here's where I have a problem, where adults decides that they want to make parodies of either Sesame Street or other types of cartoons, and they're adding the F-bomb. Of course. And it just defeats the purpose of me just having my kids just explore the web on their own. So it's like I'm always over his shoulder and over her shoulder. What are you watching? And no, that's not that. You got to watch something happy. And I don't want to keep saying happy, 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 where he has the right to feel upset or sad at any point in time. And I can't diffuse that. And it upsets me, where I have to have him on this kiddie Sesame Street for kids. And, it's just not, it's not worth it. But I have to do it, because the world is so effing corrupt. But
I think that's something to be said about the people who do YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. The filters need to be a little bit more refined. Until they decide to do that, we're gonna have this problem where you get rated G YouTube, or you get the regular one, and it's like kids can navigate these things way better than we can, because they were born with it in their hands, essentially. You know what I mean? We learn it, we know it, but the kids can maneuver a little bit differently. But until then, you just have to. Our job as parents is to be over their shoulder, and that's kind of like what it is. And it's like, and if no one, so it takes a village, right? But it's like when it comes to corporations, they could care less. They're just worried about their views. They don't care that this 12-year-old kid who now can pick up every single word is now dropping the F-bomb every other word because of some video that got through their filter. They don't care. Not at all. And it's our job to kind of be like that buffer. And as much as it sucks, like, but you have to do it, because there's the opposite. You know what I mean? Then everything is exposed to it. I think sometimes that overstimulation, especially for kids, on the spectrum, it's hard to maneuver that and process.
It is, because my daughter, she can jump from heavens high, and she and then if something comes out of whack in terms of like she's hearing Sesame Street, but she'll hear Sesame Street like with in different types of language, which I always encourage and stuff. But then there's some Sesame Streets that F this and F this that, and I don't want her to repeat that. It's like, come on,
which is true, because kids because they will repeat it.
Yes,
they will repeat it.
Yes, and it's like me and my husband have to have an ear to listen to what they're actually listening to, and I don't want to do that. But again, essentially, this is something that I have to do, and it's really unfortunate. So,
I mean, again, there might be some different like filters out there that you can find too for different channels that you can load on. I'm not sure exactly how that works on YouTube, but there has to be different channels that are specifically content creators that do specific things just for the kids. That you can filter out. You just have to look for it.
Yeah. So with that, how are you? Well, you already said that Mia had some sex ed class. So how has she mentioned to you that she is in like interested in boys?
So we actually had a conversation because I was asking her if she's interested in girls, because she shows no interest in anyone. Yeah. So
okay.
And her response is, "Mom, I'm 13. I'm not interested in anybody." I'm like, okay. So I've always been very honest with Mia that I'll love you regardless to who you like or what you like. Like, I'm here to support you as a parent. That's my job.
Right.
I don't want to make it so she's too scared to talk to me. But she's definitely liked some boys in the past, but like not anything that I think is super serious. So.
All right. Ooh. So how is Dad about that? Have you and him had a conversation? So where you guys want to? when you want to have that talk?
Well, I don't want to put anything out there about other kids' business in the family.
No.
But there are other kids, right? So it's just like, I feel like I don't have that conversation with him because I feel like that's a conversation she can have with him.
Okay.
Like as far as the birds and the bees go, they took care of that in school. Mia knows. She's like, I don't want to talk about how I got here. Like she's well aware. So she knows. So when she says, I was in the bathroom the other day saying something, and this might be TMI, and I was doing something. She's like, oh, you're on the phone with my father in the bathroom. I was like, me, I've had sex with your father multiple times. He won't mind if I'm on the bathroom. I was like, you okay? I was like, yeah, mind your business. Like, I don't even understand how this has anything to do with you. Goodbye. And she's like, I don't want to talk about it. I was like, good, then don't. In there. I was like, thank you.
Okay.
But I mean, again, I really treat Mia like, not like a mini version of myself, but I'm very open with me and very honest with me. And I hope she have the same thing with me. Mm-hmm. And if it did come time for us to have that conversation, I'm sure we could have it. Okay. And it wouldn't be bad. Her dad would be on board with it. And we'd have it as a family.
Okay.
I mean, now, she's my baby. I ain't got no choice.
You're so true. With my kids, I treat them like any other kid. I don't try to treat them with they have special needs and such. Only time that it would I would have to like discipline them, like if we're in public and she jumping up and down and Ayel, please slow down. So if you look at them, you wouldn't know they had autism. But it's just when they do their behaviors and such. Hey, it's whatever.
It's so funny since working at Children's has opened my eyes to a lot, because I now understand that when you're out in public in Walmart and you see this kid having a meltdown about this ball he can't get,
right?
It's not because he's spoiled.
Right.
Take your little judgmental face and go walk over there.
Exactly.
There could be something going on with him.
Right.
And I don't judge. I offer, like, do you need anything? If I see a parent going through something like that, are you okay? Do you need anything? Like, because a lot of these kids are like nonverbal kids, especially, the only way that they can communicate is through their actions and sounds, right? So it's or just actions in general. So I feel like we have to be so quick to stop judging kids for just being spoiled or unruly and really understanding that there could be something going on with them when they're out in public and they act. I remember I watched this video a couple months ago. This autistic boy in Costco got on the shelf and was knocking down all the TVs off the shelf.
Oh,
and the mom was crying. Yes, and the mom was crying because she thought she was gonna pay for it. Like, because when kids, especially as autistic kids get older, it's harder to wrangle them in to when they're younger. Because when they're 15-year-old boys are grown men.
And they're strong.
6'1", 210. Like they're adult size at that age. And it's just like, that's where, you have to be familiar with your cues and stuff with kids. But I learned that at Children's a lot, just kind of like how to approach and deal with situations like that when kids are having this meltdown. I'll give you another example. My girlfriend's son, Yashua, who's autistic, we was walking around Franklin Park. He was 3 at the time. Rebecca bought 1 bottle of bubbles. I said, girl, you didn't bring no other bubbles? She said, no. I was like, are you serious? I was like, this boy's going to have a fit by the time we get halfway around this park. There's going to be no more bubbles. I said, Lord have mercy. We should just go home. I was like, he's going to have a meltdown halfway across. And guess who's carrying him? Not me. Because my back hurts. That's your child. I'll carry the cart. You carry the bubbles. And I really took this as a mom who's older, who's never had a child who's autistic, who's a single parent. She's just trying to navigate, the situation. And I'm just trying to use a teachable moment with her. Girl always brings extra. If this is what he's doing right now, you can't switch off an activity on him because he's going to have a meltdown. Girl, what happened? We got halfway by the tennis court. My man had a breakdown. I said, girl, what I tell you? They was cooking out over there. And they was like, the baby okay? I'm like, he's fine. I was like, Rebecca, what did I tell you? Did I tell you to bring these bubbles? I was like, gosh darn. I'm like, you can't stop the boy from having his bubbles halfway through the walk. So it was just like learning moments with her and trying. This is before he really had service. This was during COVID. And just learning moments with her and just trying to help her understand the things I've learned at Children's, I've learned with kids, to keep it consistent with the kids that are on any spectrum. Keep it consistent for them, because the minute something changes, they don't like it. And they get very upset because you reverse their stimulus like instantly. Right. So girl was crazy. She carried that 25-pound baby. Yes, she did. Because I wasn't carrying him. I carried his bubble roller, but I ain't carrying that baby. I was like, I bet you keep bubbles in the trunk now.
That's right.
Bubbles in the trunk.
That's right. That's right. And some parents,
he's a wonderful kid.
Oh my goodness. Sometimes it's just so hard, just especially having two children with autism. I'm very, very, very grateful. I thank God that I have a husband who didn't divorce me, because that's a thing. That
shout out to you and Eli. People don't understand that what you have is a 24-hour day job.
Oh, yes.
And I think people don't get that. There's no days off. Like, this is your job. On top of your career, this is your job.
Oh, yes.
And I think people don't understand that. And that takes a lot of stress. Didn't they say like 40% of marriages with children with any disability end in divorce?
Yes.
So you guys beat statistic. That's awesome.
And girl, if it wasn't for the Lord Jesus, my mom, God rest her soul, was a praying warrior.
Yeah.
And she prayed us to stick together, and so did his mother, because we were dealt with something that we knew. I knew at the time God wouldn't put this on me if I didn't know how to deal with it.
Of course.
But my husband had a little bit of a hard time, and which is understandable, and I knew, because I worked in the fields before him, and I worked in a group home. I was a director. I was this. And I said, hon, this is happening to Nayel. Oh, no, it's not. You're just, overreacting. No, it's happening. So I went to go get it tested. I did everything for her. And when it came back, he was just heartbroken. Like he did something wrong, but he didn't do nothing. I said, this is fine.
And I think that's the problem. A lot of parents, especially I think moms more than dads sometimes, just swallow this guilt. Like, what did I do wrong to get my child to this point?
Right.
Like, what did I say? What did I do? What did I eat? What is with my body that gave this?
Right.
That's not a healthy way to look at it. It's really hard.
No.
And my brother's son never made eye contact. And I said to him, Greg, he's autistic. My mother, he's not autistic. You don't know what you're talking about. I was like, I only do this for a living.
No.
The boy won't make eye contact. So one of my good friends is a neuroophthalmologist who was a pediatrician. So I took him to my friend Ryan. And Ryan's like, Millie, you need to get him. He's like, oh, he's on the spectrum. And when my brother was so embarrassed that when he got diagnosed, he didn't even want to tell me. Because they read me the riot act, Sheila, about this boy. I was like, I'm not trying to talk down to nobody's kid. Just because he's autistic don't make him no different than nobody else.
Right.
I'm like, but there's definitely, he's on the spectrum. He wouldn't even tell me. He was so embarrassed.
Oh my goodness. You know what? And it's so, I don't even know how to say it, but when
is it a stigma? Like, is it a stigma? Do you think? Is there a stigma with autism?
I think so.
Do you feel there's like a stigma in autism?
I really do.
Color? Do you think it is?
I think it is. And I don't think some people of color don't know how to deal with it, and they just go in complete denial, and they deny it up until it's like too late. Like I know a person that just denied it. Said, oh, there's just people just want to talk bad about my kid. No, they're telling you there's something wrong. So take heed to it and get the services that you need for your child. And now that you're since your child is like maybe like 15 or 16 or such, now you want to get services. Now you want to get this. I mean, you could have had that at the early stages where he would have been able to maneuver however feelings that he had and be able to express it to you versus trying to punch you because you don't want to listen.
Yeah. It's tough. It's really tough, especially if you don't know much about it. So you were already in it, so you knew what it was. Imagine somebody, and I'm not talking about lack of education, but imagine people who, don't have the best backgrounds, who aren't really, worldly to that type of thing.
Right.
They just think their kid is bad. And it's just, they don't feel like, oh, well, there's something wrong with your child. And they're like, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with them. You don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
They don't understand that the earlier you get services, the more functional they will become.
Exactly.
And I just feel like, and in our community, it's not something that's talked about. You're West Indian,
Yeah.
Like we don't talk about these things outside of home.
Right.
And I think we need to, as people of color, really need to look into how our communities will be affected by, autism and, learning disabilities and things like that. So we can have these open table conversations and be support systems for each other and help these kids, because they get into school, they start not passing, like everything, and then everything's, it's like a domino effect.
Right.
And people don't see that. And that's how people end up not being functional or being high functioning, because you don't have the base that you begin with, because your parents didn't want to admit that there was something wrong and take the steps to get something done.
is.
It's
now, did you ever have? Well, can I ask you this? Were you ever in a spiritual place where, that you said, Lord, please don't let this be it. Please don't let this be it. I need something else other than this.
I always thought I was gonna have a straight A kid, and she was gonna do gymnastics, and she was gonna do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when it kind of looked like she wasn't, I was like more accepting of it from God. I'm like, if this is what it is, like, please just give me the patience and the tools to get her through and make her feel safe and stable.
Right.
I would take Mia any way she comes. I wouldn't try to pray away what she had.
Mm-hmm.
I just accept what comes, and just like what can my faith do to get us in a place where we're on the right path, that I have patience, and that she has patience.
Right.
And she learns that, you're not defined by certain things. Like, I definitely prayed for patience, and I accepted it. Like, if it wasn't going to be what I thought it was going to be, because, I shouldn't be projecting onto my child, just let her be what she's going to be, then this is the path we are, and this is it.
Yes.
And, I just felt like that made a difference.
Yes. And I told my husband that, honey, we have children that either on the spectrum or not, whatever they are in. I said, honey, they have their functions of their limbs. They be able to speak and express themselves. There are parents there who don't even have that. Their child are just wheelchair dependent. They're not speaking at all. So, this is a blessing, but it's also helping us to think outside the box and not be the typical parents. And he understood that, and we moved on from it. His mother, also a praying warrior, and those two, when they came together, they prayed for us. They prayed for our whole situation, and we are doing so well, where it comes naturally to us. And now, when we do see somebody, we'll offer resources for them.
Of course.
Because people will come to me and say, Sheila, do you know such and such? And I say, yeah, oh yeah, please go here, go to BMC, or go there. They have, parents groups, support groups. So you want to be that resource for those people, and not just keep it all in, because that's just this. We can't be crabs in a barrel with that mentality. Once you have a child that's has special needs, you need to let the resources know. Let them know.
And when I see patients, when I have patients, and I see parents are stressed, especially young kids with autistic kids, I always stop and ask, or any kids, like, cerebral palsy, CVI, like kids that can't see, like it's bigger than that. But it's like, I was like, how are you doing? Are you okay? Do you need anything? We have a social worker here on site. Let me grab her for you. Maybe there's something that can help you. Like, I always try to be the one to offer a little bit of assistance and encouragement. Because I feel like sometimes parents get lost in that shuffle. Yeah. People only care about the child, but you have to care about the people caring for the child as well, and offer them some stability and support as well. So I always try to make sure that the parents feel like they're helped and that they're seen, and that anything we can do to help, we'll get it together for them.
Right.
So I always do that.
Okay. Well, thank you,
welcome,
Miss Millie, for coming in and sharing your knowledge, your experiences with my listeners and me as well, and have a broader understanding. Because my main goal here is to be, the Haitian Oprah, but but also have people out here just to really. But for have people just to come out here and listen and know that they're not going through it alone. There's other people that doing the same thing. And if I could be that pillar or that connection, then that's what I will do. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's good to talk about this and get the word out. No, like, don't be scared. There's nothing wrong with your baby. Just get your baby the resources they need. That's all you can do.
That's right. Well, thank you very much. This is Sheila Joseph here at Thick Chicks with a Thought with Miss Millie. And we will see you again on the flip side.